All right, guys, welcome to the stream. Okay, sorry for my poor performance last time. I got things set up a little bit better. Okay, well, there's some crazy news going on, and I'm waiting on a podcast guest, so I figured I'd drop a stream and talk about a couple of things that I have seen around the world. So, let's get it cooking right now. We're talking about Al Jazeera. Um, I know y'all might not like that. Um, News organization, but it's always good to read ones that you haven't seen. Um, okay, so we have now closed Venezuela's airspace. So, what does this mean? My personal opinion on what this means is that we are moving forward with some kind of military operation. Now, how big that is, how small that is up for debate, and so that's what you want to kind of look at when you look at it from the perspective of, okay, is it going more militaristic, or is it going to go more, we're going to kind of let things play out. To me, the carrier groups closing the airspace, it's looking like a military intervention. But like, the question is why? Like, I still, nobody has told me, and from what I've read, I haven't seen like why, a legit answer for military action. And this is one of the things where it's like, you can be cool, you can be a military dude, you can you can support the military, and you can support what we do, what I formerly did. But that doesn't mean that you can't say, hey, look, this is bullshit. So that's why I'm saying that. Anyway, I didn't explain it in my first stream, so I figure I'd explain it now. The picture you see behind me, that is my setup picture for the stream. I just had to pick something so I don't see my house. So, because this is this is in my living room. But anyway, the helicopter you see behind me is on my podcast. I think it was episode 5 or 6. Justin Graves, that's his medevac helicopter. I took this from the turret of I think a 6x MRAP. Also, any background noise, I got a new setup on audio, a new mic, and it is super sensitive, and it's got like AI reduction. Well, I don't have a new mic, I have a new mixer. For those of you who are looking at the PodTrack 4 that do any kind of stuff like this, pretty good. All right, so let's look at this. So, U.S. says Venezuelan airspace is closed as fears of armed conflict rise. I'm not going to say I'm fearful, but hey, this is something we need to, take a look at and keep track of, because it's important. And I think, like I said, we just need to start asking questions like why, because we asked questions about Afghanistan that wasn't really questionable because we were like, hey, we know why we're going here. But as far as like Iraq, we asked a lot of questions. Weapons of mass destruction, it's still debatable on whether we ever found those. But hey, I'm not here to get into that argument today. But we could, but I'm not going to. Um, the other thing I want to talk about was an interesting story that come up. Sorry, like I said, if I sit something down, it's going to um, it's gonna make noise, and I'm not used to that. Anyway, also, doing these lives is not something I'm used to doing because I'm just starting these, and like I can do podcasts where I can like talk to someone because I'm asking questions, but having to fill all the silence, it was new to me. So, all right, Stars and Stripes. For those of you who don't know, that is a military organization. As you can see, I think I still have it up on the background. Okay, yeah, y'all are seeing what I'm seeing. Okay, so interesting story. I don't know if it's going to be on the front page. Um, okay, it's not. And if it's not, I'm not going to worry about finding it. Okay, I found it on X. Okay, all right, it's cool. Okay, so here's what happened. For those of you who don't know, in Japan, we've had issues there with the what are we going to call it, guys? The locals and the Marines doing dumb stuff. So because of that, because of those issues we've had, um, I'm sorry, I had to move some windows. We started putting what's called shore patrol. And I think, I don't know. The military, I think, has always done this. Like when we go to ports, we'll stop. And when we go out on Liberty and stuff, we will have like a group of sober dudes who are like reporting back to the ship. And they're going to do, um, they're going to just make sure that we're not doing anything stupid kind of thing. Um, I'm sorry. I gotta make sure if my podcast guest does show up, I gotta make sure I get his message. So I'm gonna put this right here. So if this thing rings, I apologize. Okay, so when we do that and we put these shore patrol guys out there, they're sober. So they go around and find people that do something stupid. Well, so many drunk Marines in Japan have done so much stupid stuff that now this shore patrol is going around and they're constantly like asking people for their ID. If they find some random dude, they're like, hey, you know, let me see your ID. Because especially if they're like out past curfew, because there's like a curfew over there. So for all my boys that have been to Japan, can probably they're probably shaking their head right now attesting, yeah, bro, that shit was crazy. And there have been like times where like Marines have like killed Japanese citizens. Like it you could go down a whole rabbit hole of like misbehavior and like commands just letting toxic leaders just there's all kinds of stuff. Dude, you go down a huge rabbit hole. So my point is there is this dude and the shore patrol, I want to say it was the military, it looked like the Air Force, and they were like asked this dude for his ID. He was like, no, he's an American citizen, but he's not in the military. So the dude in the military like picks him up, throws him on the ground, and like it's like crazy. I mean, he's like basically assaulted this dude, and it's the U.S. military, and he's a former, I want to say he's like a former Air Force captain, but he told them that he was like, I'm a citizen. I'm here on business, private business. I was former military. You have no jurisdiction here. And in the video, they pick him up and like slam him to the ground. So that's gonna be a lawsuit coming. But it was interesting because then there was a conversation on X where guys were like, okay, so I'm in a foreign country, right? I'm a U.S. citizen. I look I look military because I just look it. You know what I mean? Like like me right now. Well, because I'm doing a live stream, you can see I still got kind of a military haircut, and that's only because I wore my uniform the other day. But if I kept this appearance and like went over there, like what's to say that the military, the dudes on shore patrol, or either they got two choices. You could just walk and like be like, okay, I believe the guy, but then you may develop a culture where people just start lying and scamming. But then shore patrol can't be aggressive because you know they don't want to get impede on somebody's rights. So this could be crazy. I mean, this could really lead to some issues. I don't think it's going to be a huge thing, but I'm saying like it's an interesting conversation to have. Uh, so I thought that was pretty good, man. Like that was pretty good. Okay, I'm gonna drop on my X account. I want to look at something. I don't remember if I commented on this. Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. Okay, yeah, this is a good one. This is a good one. This is a good topic. And I said I was going to talk about this on my podcast, but since I'm not doing a podcast, I'll talk about it on the stream. So y'all check this out, brother. Where do I find? Guys, I use my phone so much. I don't know. Where do you find your replies? Oh, no. Yeah, okay. All right, yeah, here. Goes to show. Oh, by the way, I am an American for those of you who have seen the new thing, United States. But y'all can see that. I mean, like, unless I'm like an Indian dude on my X right now. Okay. Replies. Okay, here we go. Oh, okay. So, check this out. Okay. For those of you who were in the military, you might remember these. Okay. And I don't know if I can make this bigger. Let me see. Yeah, I bet I can't make this bigger. But I'll show another one so you guys know what I'm talking about. Check this out, brother. Oh, by the way, if y'all got any comments, drop them in the chat. Like if anybody's actually watching this or watching this live. Um, what were they called? Terrain models. I'm just gonna put Marines and we'll see what comes up. Okay, yeah. So you guys remember making these things, right? Like, okay, yeah, you make a terrain model. We did this as kids. We did this as grunts, especially in the military. This is like a big deal. So there's this little topic going on right now, and I thought it was an interesting little topic to talk about, especially for those of you who are military oriented or even just interested in military stuff. Okay, so this right here, my mouse. I can move it from watching the OBS screen. Okay, cool. So okay, you see that there's like this is a road coming down through here, right? All right, we got like a main. In the military, we would call that a shit. There could be a couple different names for it, but it doesn't matter. I'm blaming it on my TBI. Okay, so you got an MSR. Yeah, MSR. So you got a route or an MSR down through here, and you got all these buildings. So basically, what you're doing is when you bring your squad in, when you bring the company in or the big officers, and you may do multiple ones of these. So before an operation, a big operation, not like a daily patrol. A daily patrol is kind of like, hey, we're going here. Here's a map. We throw a map down. We do it on a really, 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 really small scale. But in like big operations, sorry, my hands are dirty. I was just working this morning. So in like a big operation, this is a big deal because you're basically um, you're making these this is basically how you're like painting the picture, so to speak, from above. We call it like 1,000-foot view. So when you're looking at this, you're basically, and you'll have like little toys, or you may have like toy soldiers, or you might have like a box symbol for like a platoon or a squad, and you would say, okay, third squad's going to move here. When you move here, you might have a machine gun section right here, and you may say, okay, he's going to shift fire, or this support by fire is going to move into this building. You know, like, okay, this is how you plan something. This is how we take over shit. Okay. But what they're talking about on X is when it gets super complicated. So there is like a level way up the chain where like all the officers are together and they're trying to walk the dog, so to speak, through this whole operation. But they're also talking about like really dumb stuff, like they're being like overly political or overly, let's see, what did the exact post say? Let's do that so that we don't miss the point here. It says combat arms rehearsal theater is dead. So basically, like, this is like the rehearsal stage and walkthroughs. Now, don't get me wrong, like, there's nothing wrong with walkthroughs. So they're saying basically picture it 300 liters in a hangar, 47 projectors, 12 hours of rock drill perfection, brigade commanders walking the miniature terrain like a god, scripting every bound. Meanwhile, the enemy's recon strike complex just watched the whole thing from orbit. Thermal bloom of the hangar, 300 cell phones pinging the same tower, every vehicle parked in neat rows outside for the satellite pass. So they're basically saying the future of warfare, this is done because they'll spy on us, and then like this is just null and void because every cell phone in there is going to be recording the thing. Meh, I don't know. I mean, here's my thing. I do agree that at a certain level, like when it gets way up there, when we're way high in the, when every commander wants every officer there, it's not going to work. But like I said in my comment, what did I say? Let me see. Okay, yeah, I said in my time in the infantry at the company level, I was with the captain most times, and his walkthrough with the lieutenants were more nuanced. However, the platoon level down was simple and digestible. I think the Marines did a good job of keeping the small unit leaders informed without overwhelming them with bullshit. This was 08 to 12 for reference, and these kinds of topics would be cool to discuss here more. So basically, what I said was like all the political bullshit that they're talking about with this, probably not something that, you know, that's not something that I don't know if it still happens. Obviously, it does. This guy's talking about it, but how much of that is needed? Because see, I don't know what the battalion commander told the officers. Like when we planned an operation in Afghanistan, I don't know like what he said to them. I seen kind of what. Not, I didn't see all of what my captain said to the lieutenants, but I seen more of it. And then I watched the platoons pass it down because I was PSD, so I was and I seen what my XO told me, but because I was kind of in on some of the operations planning, I got to see as a young corporal, I got to see more of like their level two and then like what the platoon did. But like this bullshit where they have all this crap like right here that you can see, see, yeah, like all that. I mean, you see how many roads and lines now that looks pretty complicated. But like I said, like most of the time that's for higher officers, and they got a lot more on their plate anyway, because they more or less give in the Marine Corps. We more or less give the small unit leader his terrain model might be like this, right? Whereas all these officers have the whole thing. Now, back to this post original point about like, can it be spied on? I don't know. I don't know. I think that's one of those things where it's like, could it? Sure. Like, would it? I don't know. We don't see it with Ukraine, and you would think Russia would have something like that. But like, I mean, if we're fighting China, maybe China's got a super crazy good, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Like technological advantage over us. But I don't know. I really don't think so, to be honest. I think see. I think if we went to war with like China, like first world, we would have a lot more shielding. We'd be talking about like EMP shielding, signal shielding, uh, encrypted communications. I mean, we already use encrypted radios. Like I don't know if China could break those, but I wouldn't think so. Because it's not about breaking the encryption. It's about being on time with the encryption. But I'm not going to get into any of that because I'm sure that's still classified. So I'm not going to talk about any of that on here. But just know, like our radios, it ain't like picking up you ain't buying a walkie-talkie and talking to the military. It ain't happening. Like that's a whole different. Go study radios for those of you young kids. If any of you young kids watch this, go do ham radio, man. Like that's cool. That's good shit. That's good shit to get into. Okay, so let me see if I can find the newest article that was on PBS. Speaking of news with the military, kind of normal news too. Let me see. Let me hit Google and see if I can find this dude. This is gonna flip you guys out. Army doctor charged. Yeah, this is all the news that doesn't get put on the regular news. But I heard this on a podcast. PBS covered it. So this doctor basically was like he was accused of secretly recording women. He worked on like 2 army bases, and he worked in Hawaii, and then he also worked in God, where was it? I'm trying to think. Fort Hood. There it is, right there on the article. If I look up and read. Okay, so approximately 80 women have already filed a legal complaint against him. One case alleges that he used a position of trust to sexually exploit, but the main case over is that he was recording these women, and these are like military spouses. So we're talking like 80 people he already got, and then they sent patient letters to like 2,500 chicks. Now that's not to say that like he actually recorded or molested or did things to 2,500 chicks, but they sent 2,500 women a letter saying that you've interacted or whatever with this doctor. But like 80 women have already talked to him. This right here is on par with that. Yeah, I don't know if y'all remember that case a couple years ago with the what was it? Dang, that's why I need people in the chat when I'm live, so y'all can be like, "Yo, fool, this is what it is." Dang, I don't remember. I don't remember. Dang it. Ah, sorry, I was looking at something else. Oh, y'all can see what I'm looking at. That's cool. Well, that's real nice. I was over there looking at the stream. Okay, so yeah, I forget y'all can see what I see. The Olympic, yeah, the Olympic dude. So, and then he worked at like a college. But yeah, this is gonna be on this level. So the way he got busted. Now that I've had my moment where I forgot everything, um, the way he got busted was he was there with a woman and her husband was in the room, and so he's like doing whatever he's doing with her, and she's in the chair, and her husband's like standing in the corner behind him. Where apparently he walks up to look. I don't know. It's his wife, so who cares? But he like looks, and when he leans over the doctor, so he's like leaning over the dude, and he looks down, and homeboy, obviously, the doctor's got like those pockets. He's like got his phone in his pocket, and he's it's on record. Like I mean, if it falls forward in the pocket, his pocket's got a lot of space. Well, his phone, I guess, tilted forward, and he could see the screen, and it's like actively recording. And I, excuse me, hold on. Sorry, I had to cough. I told my wife last night. I was like, bro, first of all, I was like, I would have put that dude in a rear naked choke, man. Like, I would have went to jail, but yeah, people would have found out. So apparently, but also like women been complaining about this dude, and nobody's done anything. So the army's about to take a hit. Here's the thing, for those of you normies out there that may hear this story come out, it's gonna blow up, probably, maybe. But if it does, just remember that the army and these hospitals, they hire civilian doctors. This isn't like an army doctor, and maybe he was in the army, but all those doctors aren't military. Some of the lower like nurses are at like a naval hospital. They might be corpsmen, but not all the doctors there are military. I don't think. Um, I might be wrong about that, but I'm almost positive some of them are civilians. So it's not. This does. I mean, this may make the army look bad, but oh, he did serve in the U.S. Army. Yeah, yeah. But that's not to say that they always do. But I'm gonna tell you right now, this one is a big one because you start messing with military spouses, and the military is about to have a stroke about this. So we'll see. But pretty good story. So um let's move some stuff around. Okay. So that's really it. Those are the main stories going on right now. I think that's the latest and greatest. But if we want to talk about anything, we can, like, I guess we can talk about something if this dude's not gonna come on. Let me check. Yeah, he was active 34 minutes ago, so maybe, I don't know. We'll see. But if he doesn't, I got something I want to talk about. Let me go over here and find my app. That's the thing about streams is it's cool because I can not worry about having downtime. Okay. All right. I guess I'll tease a little bit of what I'm going to talk about next time, and then I'll probably go ahead and end this thing. So, here's what I got. Okay. I want to talk about the, and I'm going to do a whole like deep dive on the Afghanistan debacle as a whole. I know I kind of talk about it a lot, but it's my thing, right? It's something that I want to I want to put this I want to put this to bed, but to put it to bed, I got to get into it. Okay. So, we're really going to talk about like it's the military's overall failure there. And this is the stream is my stream, and I can talk about what I want. And I want to do this because this is something I can't do on the podcast. Because on the podcast, I'm talking to those guys about their stories, like what happened, all that. So if you haven't seen the 11BangGang podcast, if you're listening to this stream, go check it out. That's just where I sit down with vets, the combat vets, tell combat vet stories like the one behind me, this cool helicopter right here, this action, the scene, all that. And then we talk about like how we got back, how, things were just horrific, or, you just PTSD and suicide and stuff like that, and just being like, man, I don't want to do this anymore, kind of thing. So, anyway, but now I want to get into like why we didn't win. Maybe some military industrial, like, hey, let's not end this thing because we're making plenty of money. Because every time one of these helicopters flies, Boeing's getting, $100,000. So, you know what I mean. So, let me just hit some key points. Because I got all these show notes because I'm fancy now. The post 9/11 invasion cost $2.3 trillion. So you think about this too. It's like all of our debt, like and I'm not saying all of our nation's problems, but a lot of our nation's financial problems, you can, on one hand, say came from dumping trillions of dollars into this war. And on the other hand, you can be like, well, it's, we invested back into American businesses, and now these American businesses, like that Black Hawk in the background, is way better off, and so are people's retirement portfolios. But the problem is that only affects a very small percentage of the top. The top's always going to do what's good for them. And I want to talk about some lobbying, money, political stuff, but I'll get into that on another stream. But anyway, so we spent $11 million on a cigar project. Now I got to double check what cigar stands for, so I'm not going to drop the acronym's name. But we use this project to diagnose failures. But instead of so the report, the cigar report that come out, it was $11 million. But they buried all the problems. They buried like all the bad stuff. They didn't do anything. I mean, they didn't tell all the true bad, like, we wasted all this money, we wasted all this time, this didn't work, that didn't work, and so they just buried it in this huge report. So I mean, yeah. So, but I mean, the Pentagon's always going to bury it there. The issue is you follow this paper trail, and it's always going to lead to where the money's at. And the question is like my last episode with Andrew on the podcast was it worth it? We talked about that. So I kind of want to get into the numbers and see who benefited to drag it out, and if there really was anything in these Afghanistan papers that, the deep dive is, it cost $11 million just to do it. First of all, our government is so dumb. It's like, I'm going to pay this dude $11 million to tell me that we sucked. And then they're basically, the dude who you paid $11 million to, too scared to tell you the truth. So they end up pocketing $11 million just to be like, man, it was okay. It was like a win-win. And then, like I said, they didn't even put none of the bad stuff in there. So, I mean, this is like communist Russia, where you're like, oh, we need a report on how we did. But the government's like, if the report's bad, we're going to murder you. Like, that's Gestapo, man. And, I mean, that's what the government is. And we need to be careful because we can slip and slide and fall into, something that we don't want to be if we keep doing that. But anyway, all right, I'm in the stream here. Peace, y'all.